Soon we might be able to buy groceries with the scan of a part of our body. Tell me more, please.
Yes. So here's the deal. Amazon is reportedly testing body scan payment technology. This kind of creeps me out a little bit. According to the New York Post, the e-commerce giant is trying out the system called Orville, which uses biometric technology. The way it works, as it stands, is Amazon Prime users would scan their hand to ring up a purchase instead of a card. The goal is to roll it out at Whole Foods by the beginning of next year. Dina?
Okay, I have so many concerns because that means then your fingerprints are out there.
Yep, not just your finger. And I mean, like, what if you just wave and now you have a whole roll of cereal, that you just bought?
Why not just put microchips in our arms and we just bump up next to anything?
That's where we're headed. That is the thing. I'm with you, Dina, because like as soon as you're like, oh, it's okay to like use my hand, and then next we got a chip in our arm.
Yeah.
Charter City is stunned by the sudden rollout of Rook Unlimited's most fantastic device ever. The Smart Mark. Throw your other devices away because the Smart Mark is more than just a phone. It's part of you. Use it as cash. Book your travel. And even shoot video. Distribution points are all over the city. And don't let the lines discourage you. The Rook Unlimited Smart Mark is worth the wait.
I never realized how wonderful technology could make me feel. The Smart Mark has brought order to my life.
And the best part? It's absolutely free. A gift of thanks to our city from Rook Unlimited.
23% of the population has been given the Smart Mark, number 1.
Time to test our system, number 6. The Flex Fighters are out there somewhere. Teaming up with Jonathan Rook. Let's put our new recruits to work. Subtly.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
I ought to find the Flex Fighters.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
Growing up in this city, the streets of Old Town, I saw the worst mankind had to offer. Chaos, disorder. I vowed to make it all change. To make it all better. All these years working in secret. Rising up the ranks of the tech men. It was all leading to this day. Order has finally been established in Charter City. No child will have to fear for their safety again.
The people owe you the greatest of debts, number 1, for liberating them from the chaos of their lives.
You guys love new tech. You didn't want to get smart marked?
No way. That's clearly some shady biz.
You call yourself a man of science. World order is our destiny. Submit to a Smart Mark and join the glorious victory of order over chaos, or you will be eliminated.
Grandpa, Mr. Savick, where is everybody?
They all went to get those foolish new devices.
What? No, they can't. Grandpa, those things are dangerous. It's a conspiracy. Mind control.
I knew it!
Yes, the Smart Mark. Seems pretty far-fetched, huh? Or is it? It actually might not be as far-fetched as you may think. In fact, much of this technology is already in development and is getting ready to be rolled out as we transition from this current system of control into the new digitalized system of control, which will be the cherry on top of the international surveillance state. Now, this new digitalized system of control was highlighted in my recent report about the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, which incorporates the Fourth Industrial Revolution, one of the most important reports I have done. Now, the Great Reset is an initiative launched by the World Economic Forum and is supported by the United Nations, the central banks, the mega corporations, and the governments. Essentially, the entire establishment is all on board with this agenda to usher in this new system of control, which is, of course, justified by the coronavirus pandemic, which is, of course, going to be blamed for the economic crisis and the ensuing civil unrest and the coming food shortages. Now, these are all their words. They have stated this, not me.
The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system for the need for the post-corona era. We have a choice to remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today: polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increased social unrest and conflicts. But we have another choice. We can build a new social contract, particularly integrating the next generation. We can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilized to provide us with better lives. In short, we need a great reset. We have to mobilize all constituents of our global society to work together. We must not miss this unique window of opportunity.
So the Netflix kids show Stretch Armstrong starts off with what is essentially a digital tattoo. Now, digital tattoos have been in the works for years and have been said to have the potential to revolutionize the healthcare industry. For example, Microsoft partnered with MIT on a digital tattoo project which had many different uses. And now, digital tattoos can be used to track patients' health status. They can be used to access people's smartphones, people's social media accounts, and it can even be used for cashless payments. All of this as the US, China, and many of the world's central banks and governments are ready to roll out their own central bank digital currencies as we approach the coming cashless society. Now, recently we learned of another Gates Foundation-funded program, again in partnership with MIT, for the quantum dot tattoo, which could be used to track who has been vaccinated.
Although vaccines and identity may seem unrelated, Bill Gates has spent the last few years funding research that can bring the two ideas together. Late last year, Gates once again turned to Robert Langer and his MIT colleagues to investigate new ways to permanently store and record the vaccination information of each individual. The result of their research was a new vaccine delivery method. They found that by using dissolvable microneedles that deliver patterns of near-infrared light-emitting microparticles to the skin, they could create particle patterns in the skin of vaccine recipients which are invisible to the eye but can be imaged using modified smartphones. Rice University describes the quantum dot tags left behind by the microneedles as something like a barcode tattoo. So who was behind this development? As lead researcher Kevin McHugh explains, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation came to us and said, "Hey, we have a real problem, knowing who's vaccinated." So our idea was to put the record on the person. This way, later on, people can scan over the area to see what vaccines have been administered and give only the ones still needed. The microparticles that form the fluorescent quantum dot tags are delivered along with the vaccine, but they cannot be delivered by a traditional syringe. Instead, they must be delivered by a patch of microneedles made from a mixture of dissolvable sugar and a polymer called PVA, as well as the quantum dot dye in the vaccine. It should be no surprise, then, that big pharma vaccine manufacturers, in their scramble to produce the coronavirus vaccine that, Gates assures us, is necessary to go back to normal, have turned to a novel vaccine delivery method: a dissolvable microneedle array patch.
The University of Pittsburgh is where the polio vaccine was first discovered. At the medical center, researchers are now developing a vaccine that is delivered using a dissolvable patch called a microneedle array.
Think about them as almost like a Band-Aid. And so the microneedle array is simply applied to the skin topically, pressed into place very shortly, and then taken off and thrown away. And then the antigen is already delivered.
The University of Pittsburgh is where the polio vaccine was first discovered. At the medical center, researchers are now developing a vaccine that is delivered using a dissolvable patch.
Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Now, Gates also came out recently and said there needs to be a digital vaccine certificate to keep track of who has been vaccinated.
Eventually, what we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person.
This could very easily and very likely be incorporated into immunity passports, which are ready to be rolled out in 15 different countries, including the United States, the UK, Canada, Mexico, and several others. Now, all of this, of course, could be tied into yet another Gates-backed project in partnership with the United Nations in ID 2020 under the UN's Sustainable Development Goal 16.9 to provide every man, woman, and child a digital ID, including birth registration. So it is very clear we are moving towards a new system where everything and everyone will be incorporated into this new digitalized system of control, where everything about you, every aspect of your life will be digitalized and centralized and controlled essentially by the establishment. And this is where the social credit scores will also really play a major role in shaping your decisions. So am I saying we're all going to have to get a tattoo that will contain all your information, or will it be a microchip? Well, no, not necessarily. But when it gets to the point that Michigan, the state of Michigan, has to pass a bill providing a clear distinction that being microchipped could not be forced and has to be voluntary, we're probably not that far off. And it doesn't have to necessarily even be a tattoo or a microchip. After all, that may be too invasive and it may be met with resistance, right? So it could come in many other forms. It could also be all incorporated onto your smartphone. It likely will. But it will also likely include some form of biometric technology such as fingerprints or facial recognitions. So going back to the Netflix children's show, the smart mark is rolled out suddenly by an evil villain. And the ultimate objective of the smart mark is mind control. Now, surely that part of the show must be too far-fetched, right? Well, as crazy as this sounds, no. Mind control is not too far-fetched, at least not for the U.S. government who conducted secret experiments on mind control like MK Ultra. Mind control wasn't too far-fetched for the scientists who conducted experiments on mice and rats by implanting chips in their brains or having a brain interface. Kind of reminds me of Elon Musk's Neuralink project, where he aims to literally implant microchips and wires into human brains, and with an end goal of integrating artificial intelligence into humans.
Yeah, I mean, but we have made a monkey has been able to control the computer with its brain. Just, yeah.
Each electrode is inserted into your head via tiny threads that are roughly 5 micrometers thick. They're around 10 times smaller than a human hair and contain 32 electrodes each. It's roughly the same size as a neuron, which is a good idea. There's a size limit for things that you want to stick in your head. Something too large is inevitably going to cause problems, so the smaller, the better. Neuralink actually made a robot that is used to insert these with extreme precision, which is pretty much mandatory. Humans couldn't do it if they wanted. This is a penny. It's pretty small, right? It's roughly the same size as the tip of my thumb. Now, zooming in extremely close, this right here is the needle that will be inserted into your skull. Placing it beside a penny, you actually couldn't see it. As the robot inserts each thread one by one, at the end, there could eventually be up to 10,000 of these electrodes inside your head, each responsible for recording separate neurons which can later on be analyzed. But not only can they read data from your brain, they can also input data as well. It's a two-way street. It's sort of like being able to upload and download things from your brain.
You're working to build basically an interface to the brain.
Yeah. Electrode to neuron interface at a micro level.
Okay, what is it? Like, I'm gonna have like a plug in my head that's gonna fit into a hard drive? Like, or how does that work?
Yeah. A chip and a bunch of tiny wires.
This would be implanted surgically. And it would do what? Could you input? Could you download Jim?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This project is essentially part of the World Economic Forum's fourth industrial revolution, where these social engineers decide and dictate the future of humanity for us. They openly talk about merging man with machine. This is a transhumanist agenda being rolled out by the technocrats. I know this sounds crazy, and I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it for myself. And I rarely ever ask you guys to do anything, but right now I'm going to ask everyone. After you finish watching this report, please search Fourth Industrial Revolution on YouTube, or click the link in the description and you will find the official World Economic Forum's own video on the Fourth Industrial Revolution talking about merging man with machine.
The original Industrial Revolution was driven by the discovery that you could use steam engines to do all kinds of interesting things.
But that was followed by additional revolutions for electricity and computers and communications technology. We're now in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, which is bringing together digital, physical, and biological systems.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
You will hear them talk about gaining access to people's thoughts and emotions and building a construct for them to safely operate and think in. This is the definition of mind control.
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotion, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts. And in a society where people fear having those thoughts, the likelihood of being able to enjoy progress is significantly diminished.
Now, do you really think that if the technocrats of this fourth industrial revolution were actually able to merge man with machine and have the ability to literally control your thoughts and emotions, that they wouldn't do it? Of course, it'll be sold as, the greatest scientific achievement in history, helping the blind to see and helping the disabled to walk. But history shows us that things which could be used to benefit humanity are all too often weaponized and used against it. So once again, going back to the Netflix children's show, is this predictive programming? Is this conditioning our children for the coming digitalized dystopian future enslavement of humanity? Or is this a warning? Share your thoughts below. You can follow my work on BitChute, Twitter, and activistpost.com. I'm Spiro. Thanks for watching.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change. The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.